Hello everybody, welcome to day 106 of my art development series. If this is your first time here, my name is Angela Wren, and this is a series that I'm doing where I document my everyday art practice and how I think about growing as an artist. And so what I'm going to be talking about today is a life drawing session that I did. And I'm still kind of in the process of figuring out what the best way is to share how my life drawing sessions went and how and the drawings that I did during a life drawing session. Unfortunately, but just realistically, I can't record my drawing sessions during life drawing because it's pretty disrespectful to be recording or bring in a recording device while you have like a live new model present. Even if you're only recording your drawings, it's still it's like a bit disrespectful and kind of putting other people in a weird position that they might not like. It's different when you own an atelier like someone like Jeff Watts, and you go through the process of like setting things up, explaining things to the model, and you have like a very clear separation of what you're recording and what you're not recording. Versus when I show up to an open drawing session, I can't really record my drawings. But I still would like to share them and talk about them because they are part of my art development and part of my art practice, and actually a pretty critical component at that. I think that there's a lot of different ways to grow, a lot of different ways to do effective practice, but absolutely figure drawing is one of them. There's a reason that for the last 500 years at least, and probably even more than that, a critical component of every art school on earth and every atelier, and this is not just found in like Western art, but even in Eastern art, everyone has kind of independently discovered the importance of drawing the nude figure and drawing the figure. And so this figure drawing session was at the Art Students League of New York, and this was a Sunday session. So I think in total it was about 3.5 hours. But I normally only ever draw for about 2.5 or 3 hours. I find that if I stay any longer, those last couple drawings, I'm just so tired that it's more like a waste of material and like kind of a waste of my effort. But let's see, I'm kind of building up to, there's probably a point in time where I'll be comfortable to draw for that long, but I really burn out at the 2.5 hour mark. And so the way that the session works is it starts first with like shorter poses, like just 30 seconds, or sorry, first a minute, then 2 minutes, then you build your way up to 5, 10, 15, and 20. On this drawing day, I forgot to put down, like I normally like to write next to the drawings what the time was or what the time limit was. And I kind of forgot to do that for these ones. But we'll just kind of go through 2 pages that I did. I believe everything that I'm showing you is probably at least minimum 5 minutes, but then up to and including 20-minute drawings. And so what I'll do is I'll kind of turn the camera around and we'll look at the page together, and I'll just kind of talk about the drawings and maybe even make some marks or some indications for different things, and we'll connect it together like that. So I'll now turn the camera around and we will talk about the drawing specifically. Okay, so this is the first of 2 pages that we're going to be looking at. And as you can see, I try to make an effort to really fill the page with different drawings before I move on to the next. And this is a size that I was actually really comfortable working in on this day. So the model it was an older gentleman with glasses, as I hope is kind of like illustrated by these drawings. And as I said, these are drawings that are somewhere between, I think that these ones might be closer to 2 minutes or 5 minutes. And then some of these longer ones are probably getting into the 10-minute range. So I did decide to play a little bit around with the portrait. And actually, personally, I wasn't super happy with how this portrait came out. I think that there's some decent things going on here in terms of just being able to kind of block in ahead quickly. But, there's a lot of likeness issues and even some drawing issues with respect to the mouth just being too dark as a single shape. And I think there's a little bit too much distance here. So this could be fixed by kind of expanding a little bit more here, and giving like a little more depth or detail to the lips, as well as like the eyes and the glasses and just some things off. This was probably my favorite drawing of the day, actually. I think I captured really well kind of the wraparound of the chest. So it's kind of nice on, male figures. You can kind of have this, let's say this like shelf of the pectoral muscle that you can kind of indicate here. And I also noticed like just the way that the lighting was set up, I was able to like really kind of clearly block in the darks and the lights. I think there's like a little bit too much outlining that's happening in this figure, especially, in this area and around the armpits and things like that. But overall, I quite like this, and I feel that it was pretty successful. I also like that, I didn't necessarily do like a strong core shadow to separate lights from darks, but it still has a nice feeling of the lights being separated from the darks, which was like a bit accidental, but something that I'll try and explore and play with a little bit more in the future. This drawing was kind of came in nicely, and I think I was actually experimenting a little bit with the first thing that I did is I had kind of charcoal powder, and I first put in the shape with charcoal powder, and then afterwards I tried to find the line. So for example, here you can see I kind of have the foot in charcoal powder, and then what I would do afterwards is I would try and find the shape that exists there. So something like that. And you can see like even here, the kind of like outside of the knee and everything, and kind of creates this cool effect where you have some blending between the background and the foreground. And there might have been something similar happening here. Now let's look at the next page of drawing. And I believe these were all 20 minutes. And I think overall, so. My favorite on this page, my favorite two would be these two here. I think I got caught up a lot for some reason in outlining on this day. Everything has these like really, really strong outlines that, I wouldn't necessarily want to carry over outside of whatever this day was. So let's just focus in on this drawing. This was actually, I think like, I like this one a lot because it was actually like, in my opinion, a particularly difficult pose. I was like right at the back of him. He was on the ground, and you can see that there's really not much to work with. I can't see either of the legs. I don't really have anything of this arm. I don't have any portrait. It's really just the back and kind of this like hunched over position. And what I think is nice about this is that I was able to capture the gesture. You can really see that he's like leaning in and that the weight is captured here, that you can see the weight is really on this leg. So that was kind of a nice experimentation. I also liked being able to use the glasses to kind of indicate like which direction he was looking or which direction the face was. And, I use that a lot to my advantage, like especially here, kind of being able to indicate that, he's looking in this direction over his shoulder. And likewise, here he's kind of looking off in this direction. Let's see if I can just kind of rotate this a little bit to look at this other drawing. This was just a nice seated pose. I got a little bit caught up, I think, in the belly area. But one thing I did do here is, like, at some point I noticed that the lighting pattern in the stomach here was actually not clear. But because he was like an older gentleman and like a little more overweight, I noticed that there was like kind of a spherical shape that was here. And I tried to like really push that and use, the simple shape of a circle. You have, if the light source is here, you have the core shadow here. And then you have, reflected light. And then you ideally have like a little highlight that's occurring there. And so I kind of tried to actually do that with him, where I, made this the core shadow and then left the light to kind of create this like image of this feeling of like what's happening with the stomach. And then I also found that nice, pectoral shelf that exists here along the front of the body. So overall, this was a decent drawing session. As I said, about 2.5, 3 hours. And these are probably the, 7 images that I like the most that I did like kind of right in the center. There's a few 2-minute poses and 1-minute poses that it's not advised that I show you those. So hopefully this medium worked okay. Leave me a comment if you think there's a better way that I can be sharing what I do during my life drawing sessions. But for right now, I think this is kind of the best approach that I can think of. So I will see you again tomorrow for day 107.